Hey, this is Christian Buckley with CollabTalk, and I'm here with Hal, and we're getting ready to have a conversation, talk tech, which is always exciting. But Hal, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, fine, Christian. My name's Hal Hostetler. I live in Tucson, Arizona. I am a Microsoft MVP and have been in the program for 22 years, which makes me one of the really old, long-haired, gray-beard tourists, as you can tell.
I think they announced while we were at Summits. I think somebody just got their 25th or something. I know I kind of caught part of the announcement there.
Yeah, there are a couple that are out there older than me. One, John McGee, he's a offers service and service. Actually, he's Outlook. Okay. And he's been, I think, 24, 25 years now.
Yeah, wow.
He's from Australia, Tasmania, someplace down under. But,
yeah, honestly, I didn't realize the program was running that long, but that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I got into it in about the second or third year, 1996. Back then, there was no Answers or any of those forums. It was Usenet news groups, and I got in there looking for answers for a question, and I wound up answering questions because I saw a bunch of them I knew answers to, and one thing led to another. MVP, here we come. 22 years later, still going.
That's great. And so how much has the MVP, your focus area, changed? I know that it's shifted around because I started as a SharePoint. I became an Office 365, and then they kind of consolidated and created the Office server and services to kind of encompass. I think it has Exchange, Outlook, Yammer, SharePoint, Office 365, and a few other things. Yeah.
That's where we're going, by the way, nevertheless. Yeah. But yeah, the program has changed remarkably. Back when I got into it, there were only about 200 worldwide, most everybody in the United States. Back then it started off as Windows 98. The designation then was PEROPSYS, or Personal Operating Systems. That led to desktop systems, DTS, which led to Windows Experience, which led to a thing called printing and imaging, because me and one or two of the other folks were good with the Microsoft fax system that's built into Windows. Yep. And so we had questions on that and so forth, which led back to Windows Experience again, which led to Outlook, and that's where I am now.
Wow.
I've been with Outlook the whole time, though, because that's actually what got me involved with it. I had questions about the old Windows 98 Exchange client. We were trying to make that work, and that's how it happened.
You know, it's interesting. There's a lot that's happened. Again, I got into the Microsoft ecosystem back in really officially 2005 when I did a deployment of a collaboration platform, and I used Microsoft products for many years, of course, but I had been working with IBM technology and with Rational software and a bunch of other things. But I went and did a deployment of SharePoint and kind of saw the vision, caught the vision of what SharePoint could be, got involved. What's interesting is I've talked to people, good friends that have been in the community since the start, since 99, 2000, that were at Microsoft as well. A lot of them started the exact same way. They went looking for answers to questions that they had, couldn't find them. And so just their personalities were such that they just like, well, we've got to go and solve this. Someone has to know the answer. And just started drilling in, and then kind of documented that, blogged about it, wrote about it, shared that out there. And then people would come back and start posting questions to them. And it just grew and grew and grew to where they became this expert. And, honestly, it's the things, there's so many different things now. I mean, there's no one can be an expert on all aspects of any single product. There are so many opportunities for people just to jump in and to learn in depth about things and share that knowledge and become experts.
Yeah, and there's new stuff being created all the time, which is, the candy store doors never close.
Yeah, well, it's really funny too. I mean, so your focus around an Outlook and Exchange, that side of things, and there's I thought email was supposed to die like several years ago. What happened?
Fax was supposed to die too.
Yeah,
that happened. Yeah.
And there was somebody, like a week ago, somebody was like, I need to fax something. And they're like, you're kidding me. Who's asking for a fax? And And my response is,
your doctor, your lawyer, any government agency, anything
right,
in the world that you do that involves anything official, you need a fax.
right. And I think to your point is that there's just the built-in. I've gone down and I've used it, and I've,
And it still works really well.
right. Yep. So I mean, besides being so passionate about faxing technology, which is great, there's a separate conversation I would tell you about a service that I ran in my first tech company almost 30 years ago. Was a product or a service called Broker Fax. And that's what we did. We set up automated faxes that would go out. We had that tapped into our Paradox database system, and then auto sent out and dialed out on all these lines, and sent people nightly updates, and they paid for that service. It was kind of a very, very innovative thing for 1991, 1992.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So, I mean, again, faxing is so exciting, but what else is of interest? Like, what are you passionate about right now?
Right now, the latest thing that has come out that I'm really stuck on is Microsoft Teams. I work for an outfit called Roland Schorr Tower. It's a consulting firm, IT, Microsoft partner actually, and we have monthly meetings. And to date, that monthly meeting consists of, first of all, Skype so we can talk back and forth. Then we've got Slack opened up so that we can chat back and forth and look at various and stuff. There's an operations and a general and an emergency group in Slack, and so we refer back and forth to those. Plus, we've got a OneNote page open with the meeting agenda, and so there's like 3 or 4 different windows all going at the same time, just to have one meeting. Along comes Microsoft Teams, and guess what? You can do all of that inside Teams, one window. My goodness, that is just, I'm quite beyond myself. And so I've been pushing the guys with the rest of the folks with the company. Hey, we need to get into this. I got them to give me permissions on the tenant, so I went in and got it all set up, and we're moving from Slack and all those other things in Teams, and it solves so many problems. And they're adding new features to it every day. You can add Trello, for example, to it. OneNote, I can bring our meeting agenda up right in the main window. I'm hoping that they've got some other things like Autotask, which is one of the things that we use for tracking service and so forth. That one isn't available yet, but like I say, new things are being added to it every day. New connection. It's just a thing of beauty.
Right. I think that's the point. I mean, if you're using a tool or service that is not yet supported natively or integrated in fully, it doesn't matter. If it's web-based, you can just go at it as a tab and have it in the relevant channel and be using that, within that team, within that project, however you set up your channel. So as far as adding context to a project or I launched my company January last year. Day one, we have been a Teams shop, and we use Yammer, we use SharePoint, we use OneDrive, OneNote. I live inside of OneNote every day.
Pretty much do that too.
But with all of those things, plus third-party tools. So I don't use Planner. I use Trello with some outside groups. Nonprofit I'm involved with. I use Canva, which is a vendor. It's actually installed on SharePoint, but again, they have their connector and their bot. But just having that available on the tab, it just makes it really easy to go and do that. If I need to collaborate with somebody outside of the organization through this third-party service, I can still do that straight through the browser. But more and more, I find myself just putting everything that's relevant to a client or a project within those tabs within a team. And so I just go to one place. I find everything I need.
It's one click away.
Right.
It's just a thing of beauty. It's a thing of beauty.
There's some rough spots still.
Well,
but like any newer product, I've actually got a blog post that's going out pretty quick about an experience I have with multi-tenant movement. And I realize that's not an issue that affects a lot of people. you have your company, your login, you're fine. And then most people will then, if you're working with another group, it's a guest access to another network. Well, I actually have 3 separate logins, emails, passwords, all different for 3 separate tenants. And there's no way to easily move between those things.
Yeah.
And I think I've actually broken teams. So
yeah, well, no, it hasn't been broken, I don't think. But yeah, that's one of the things that I brought up to them when we were discussing that at the summit. They had some sessions on that, and I brought that up. That's one of the things that they're certainly looking into, because as it stands right now, I'm involved with 3 or 4 different teams. There's the one that Collab 365 has put out. That's you guys.
Yep, I'm on that as well.
That is really cool. I am so glad that you did that, because it is a horrendously valuable learning tool for people to get in and practice and play and ask their questions and get answers. And of course, then Microsoft has kind of picked up on that also. They've got their own separate team. There's one on Azure Backup. They've just created a new one, a team on Teams itself, that I've just gotten involved with, which there are now a couple, 200-300 MVPs involved with that, and that's going strong, and more people are getting on there daily. And the trouble you can have with that is, okay, you got 3-4 of them. How do you keep track of everything? And there's
and the other question too is, when in those scenarios that you just brought up, if you're talking about, because I know that different groups are trying this out, and the Collab 365 guys, Mark and team are they doing some experiments with that to see how that works. My argument would be, whenever I've got multiple companies involved, that it's a kind of a bigger community effort, I use external facing groups in Yammer, because it's better, in my mind, it's better suited for that broad, not sure how much we need to go in. Occasionally I'm following some threads and conversations. I think of teams as more of the specific working group, the people that you need to have together to close this ticket, to work on this project, to work on this event. So where do you see that separation between those two?
Well, that's kind of an interesting point. I'm actually looking at it more like the standpoint of, okay, let's get all that moved into teams. We've got, for example, the Yammer group for the organization I work for, and since we've started using Teams, we really don't use that so much. It's just the thing that you can't get more than one window going if you're doing several teams. That's one thing that I hope that they work on quickly to get that straightened out. You can open one up in the desktop and another one up in the browser, and so you can get 2 windows going. But again, a lot of that stuff with the external facing, that can just so easily be brought in, so that you have a tab for them, and you just start moving tabs, not
right,
jumping all over the place with different applications and different groups and that sort of stuff. Have a tab for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I'm all excited about it, because it just, you can take so many other areas and just dump them in there and have them all in one spot, so that they're all at your fingertips. It's remarkable. And I don't know if you answered your question or not. But
I mean, no. I mean, I think that's actually what is exciting about what's coming out there. I mean, you attended Summit. I mean, there's a lot of things. We were probably in a lot of those same sessions together. Learn about things that we can't talk about yet. Some of the things that have been publicly announced since we've left Summit, like they talked about. I wasn't sure the timing of it, but there's the blog post out there about the translation services and the transcripting. I don't know the time frame, but I think they are doing the deployment now of the being able to record the capability. So it is rolling out, or it's still in preview or being rolled out. I'm not sure. I just don't. I don't have it.
There was a bit of a discussion about that a little bit earlier this morning that I listened in on, and they really don't have a time frame, except they're going to try to get something done this year.
Right.
What I'm understanding.
But think how exciting
summer.
Yeah, and how exciting that'll be, though, to be able to go in and you conclude a meeting, you've recorded it via Teams, that it leverages the stream technology, does the transcription, so it's saved down locally, so it's tagged to your channel, to the team, to where it was, It's got other metadata like who's involved, but you can then immediately go and search on that meeting and arguably like go and queue up to the point in the recording to where that was discussed, so you could go jump in and see what you missed.
Yeah.
And then you have the translation services around that. So you could even, if they're going to, which I'm sure they are, just like the Skype translator stuff that's been out there for a couple of years, has been very exciting to see that development. So that you can actually have people that don't speak English that can join in and have those meetings in real time translating to their native language.
Yeah, it's
pretty cool stuff.
And you can see then pretty much why I'm so hot and bothered about it, because it's just the way that improves collaboration between people and between businesses and between people in different countries. And it's hard not to just sit there and foam at the mouth, really.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you would say would be like your requests, things that you think are missing from that? Kind of what are the gaps?
The biggest thing is to have the multiple windows or arrangements, because, well, for example, I've got the team that I've set up for the place that I work for. I kind of pretty well have to keep that one open all day long, which then gives me a problem with, I want to go check on the Collab 365 team, which means I have to log out of one and log into the other.
Right.
This, if they could just get that part fixed, I would be utterly delighted. They're working on that too, because when I first got involved with it, OneNote, for example, you could open up a nice tab with OneNote, but it was a OneNote that was just in one place. You couldn't go grab your meeting agenda or somebody else's or stuff that you've recorded for some other organization that you're working on and have that at your fingertips. You had to open that in a separate window. Well, lo and behold, a month or two ago, presto, now you can open up any OneNote notebook that you want on a tab, any tab, and have that. You can have multiple tabs going. So they're doing some serious work on the back end to get this thing whipped into some really great shape.
Right.
And I am just so excited to hear what new announcements they're going to be making. I kind of watch for that every day. What did they add today that I can go play with?
Yeah. Well, that's why it's every time I see those the announcements that come out, just the service announcements, and so occasionally you find some things buried within there. That's actually a question I get a lot from members of the community, attendees to events, as they say, how do you keep up on everything? And I'm like, look, I have my methods. I mean, how do you stay up to date?
That's a really good question. And it's just like you, I kind of playing catch up most of the time, because there are just so many places. You've got the various Microsoft forums. You've got a number of folks who hang out on Twitter, a number of folks that hang out on Facebook. You have Yammer. You've got all of the various Microsoft channels. Trying to keep up with those is really, really difficult. In my case, it's 3 or 4 windows open at the same time and trying to pay attention to all of them.
Yeah. I tell people that it's like there's a few different folks that you can go and follow that seem to do a good job of focusing and staying in tune with like one channel. I mean, so you have Daryl Webster and dude that running and he and Daniel Glenn, but that run the Regarding 365, and they go through and talk about on a weekly basis, at least a weekly basis, all the service announcements that have come out and new features. That's one way. The other one is I tell people is like you have to subscribe to the Office blog, because that's where the news breaks and where Microsoft is trying to push that information. And then the third thing would be to go and follow certain communities over in Microsoft Tech Community, because that's where when Microsoft makes an announcement out the blog, that's where they are going to push discussion, is over into the tech community. And then of course, from there it goes all over the place depending on what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that tech communities is a nice new thing that they've come up with. That's been what 6 months or so that they've had that.
No, it's been out longer than that. But what's interesting is that they had pretty broad adoption in certain product areas over in the Yammer communities, and the Yammer just wasn't scaling. It did give them some of the capability they needed. They needed the anonymous access and a bunch of other things that just like having a forum that's out there. So they then went and launched there's a little bit of controversy because it's not Microsoft technology. They went and built this community on non-Microsoft owned tech, but it gave them the features that they wanted. And so they finally now have surpassed the number of members that they had over in those Yammer communities. And it's doing really well, but I think I always tell people, the Office blog is number one, follow that. 2, tech community, follow certain things, and then also leverage the user voice when you have that feedback.
Yes.
Those 3 things, that's like the trinity that you need to pay attention to of what's coming. And if you want to stay on top of kind of the latest discussion, it's in those 3 places.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing, of course, that you can do is you can get involved in the insider programs for both Windows and particularly the one for Office. That gets you the latest and greatest. And there's some neat features that they've put in there too. For example, there's a backstage reporting feature available in Outlook. You got an Outlook problem, it crashes. You actually have a support feature where you can click a button and tell what it is that was happening, the crash that you had, or whatever problem may have come up. The backstage feature collects a number of various logs and so forth. And when you send that off, it goes right to Microsoft support, or Outlook support, and gets you pretty much instant feedback on the problem. I've used this a couple of times with their later releases to report bugs, and that feature works out really nice. So if you've got people who are into playing with that sort of stuff, you get them involved with the insider programs. You get them not only the latest bits, but you got a way to talk back and work with Microsoft to solve problems. That is a neat feature they've added.
Yeah, they are really pushing to expand that program too. That's a great point. Anybody that really wants to be on the cutting edge of what's happening that's coming out of Microsoft, you need to go join these insider programs. And the ask, of course, of participating, so you're providing that feedback, you're utilizing these things. But to be like on the fast ring of deployment, to see the bits, get them first to make sure your tenant is on the front line. It's a good and a bad thing. When you're dog fooding, that means that you're on the front line of problems, things that don't work out as well. And so you just have to be prepared for that. I'm at the point where I'm thinking about moving back over to that side of things because there's just so much that's coming out. The danger was always that, as a Microsoft employee, and a number of times where I've been on these early previews where it's taken down my system, it's taken down my, it stopped me from getting other work done. But
and that's what Hyper-V fixes.
Yeah. And it's, that doesn't happen as often now, but it's so you've got to kind of take that with a, grain of salt, participating in those kinds of programs. But they're an excellent way just to be up to date on what's coming and the state of these new features when they go live to the general.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, Hal, I really appreciate your time today. How can people really want to find out about what you do? Like, where can they find you online? What's the best way to reach you?
The best way to find would actually be the Answers community. That's where I spend most of my time answering questions. I'm available on Facebook as Hal Hostetler. I'm available on Twitter as @TVWizard. I worked 34 years for a television station and was pretty good engineer, so TV Wizard seemed to fit pretty nicely. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm really not that hard to find. And if you want to ask a question, I got hopefully an answer for you. And if I don't have an answer, I'll go find something, because if you got the question that I can't answer, that gets under my skin, and then I want to know.
Yeah, I would say across the board, MVPs in general are always happy to get questions and answer things. I'm sure you do the same thing. If I don't know the answer, if I can't go and find this thing, I likely know someone who does know the answer, and I'm happy to make referrals that way as well.
Absolutely. You get that problem solved one way and learn something in the process. That's even more important.
Yep.
And I learn everything daily. I maintain the right, steadfast right to learn something new from anybody at any time.
Yep.
And that has kept me in good stead.
Yeah, that has been one of the huge benefits of being not just part of the program, because honestly, I do the same stuff even if I weren't an MVP. But it is a great way to continually be learning. Is to just people come with questions like, I don't know. I'm going to find out and go track that down. So that's actually a blog post that I'm going to push out later tonight. Was a customer question at an event. I'm like, I don't know. And I was frustrated with this customer that we weren't able to find it in the online documentation. I took it to Microsoft and got an answer. It was incorrect. And then went back to Microsoft, pointed out, look, and then we got a more full, more complete answer, which is what I'm going to blog about. And I have permission to blog about it, so it's good. So
good. Excellent.
Yeah. But, well, Hal, it's great meeting you. And I'm sure we'll get to talk again soon. But otherwise, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
You too, and y'all take care out there.